Okay, so I think that the time has come for us to address the elephant in the room, the cognitive dissonance surrounding Zimbabwe's progress. Because there is a Zimbabwe that exists in the minds of millions of people around the world. And for many people, many of those people, that Zimbabwe is the Zimbabwe of 2008. It is the Zimbabwe that is riddled with empty shelves, hyperinflation, and piles of rubbish in the streets of Harare. That is the image. That is the image that is interred in people's minds. But what happens when that image, when that picture no longer matches the Zimbabwe that exists today, the Zimbabwe that is in front of you? What happens? I mean, I could ask you, when was the last time you witnessed something new in Zimbabwe? You came across an example, a real recent example that made you stop and say, hang on a minute. This is not the Zimbabwe I had in mind. This is not what I thought Zimbabwe was. When was the last time that happened? And judging by the comments that I'm reading, not many people can confidently say that. Now, don't get me wrong. The Zimbabwe of 2008 is real. That Zimbabwe happened. And this is the time the whole world was experiencing economic turmoil as well. But for Zimbabwe, the struggle took on a catastrophic turn because I remember that year so well. It is a year I regretted going to Zimbabwe. I had never regretted going to Zimbabwe, I mean, ever. But when I went to Zimbabwe in 2008, what I saw, I mean, that image, that mental picture has stayed with me. I remember walking into a supermarket and seeing empty shelves with nothing except 2 bars of soap, those black bars of soap. And I looked around and I asked, where is the food? They said, sister, there is no food. I expected even Maputi. I couldn't see Maputi. There was nothing, literally nothing. And I also remember my brother telling me he has to wake up at 2 a.m. to go join a queue to get cooking oil and hopefully a few groceries. It wasn't even a guarantee that he was going to get something. I remember that year. And of course, international media did what it does best. It switched on the cameras and showed the state of Zimbabwe. The images of Zimbabwe reduced to rubble became iconic. That image, those pictures became the story of Zimbabwe. Now, the problem isn't that this story was told. There's nothing wrong with that because the story is real. The story happened. It's not propaganda. The problem is the world was given this powerful story, this powerful image, this powerful narrative about Zimbabwe. And guess what? The cameras were switched off after that. The world didn't get to see the entire story afterwards. The world didn't get to see the rebuilding process, how Zimbabwe began to pick itself up, the new infrastructure, the investment, economic activity developing, technology, tourism boom, even the people's resilience, the diaspora reconnection. I mean, agriculture, the mining industry, even people's ordinary experiences. The world didn't get to see that. This is the missing link. These are the missing years, the rebuilding process, the shift, the gradual shift. And so this created an information vacuum. And we know that vacuums don't stay empty forever. Someone is going to fill that vacuum. And so here we are, fast forward to 2026. People are genuinely surprised to see the progress, the development that is happening in Zimbabwe. They can't believe it. It is because they didn't see the transition, the transformation, that process. That is the missing link. And this is why we see a lot of cognitive dissonance in people's commentary about the developments happening in Zimbabwe. Because if the last piece of information you have about Zimbabwe is that of a country in utter ruins, and suddenly you're seeing progress, I mean, it doesn't make sense to you, does it? If there hasn't been new information, if you haven't received new information, gradual information over the years, then it creates a disconnect. Because how can you jump from that Zimbabwe that is in utter ruins to a Zimbabwe that is making progress, to a Zimbabwe whose economic activity is developing, whose infrastructure is now being praised. In other words, it causes conflict in your mind because the math is in mathing. So when reality challenges a deeply held mental picture of Zimbabwe, guess what? We don't always immediately change that picture or correct or embrace the new information. So what do we do instead? We look for ways to explain it. We clamor, we scramble for explanations to make sense of the new evidence in front of us. And this is where, yeah, some of these explanations, I mean, I'm finding them really interesting. I've come across some of these ways that people are trying to explain to make sense of Zimbabwe's progress in their minds. Because, yeah, as I say, the math is in mathing. So we now have the Traore's effect. Some people are saying it is because of Traore, and I get it. I get it. Because Ibrahim Traore has been doing some interesting things in Burkina Faso, and perhaps Zimbabwe can learn a thing or two. Absolutely. And indeed, other African countries can learn from other African countries the same way other countries in Europe and other parts of the world also learn from each other, from other countries. Absolutely. So I completely get it. But let us not forget that Zimbabwe is a unique country with its own unique history, its own economy, its own people, its own culture, its own journey. And that journey didn't suddenly begin because of Traore, because Zimbabwe has been on that journey for many years. And yes, perhaps there's a Traore effect in certain areas. I mean, as I said, I get it. But it doesn't explain everything that we are seeing in Zimbabwe. Because as I said, Zimbabwe has been on this journey for many years. And then there's another explanation. Some people are saying it is because of South Africans. It is because of South Africans residing in Zimbabwe. And some people are saying that it is because of Zimbabweans who were in South Africa, those who got deported a couple of months ago, went back to Zimbabwe. And this is why we are now seeing this sudden progress in Zimbabwe. And you know what? Yes, Zimbabweans returning to Zimbabwe can absolutely contribute. They can play a part towards Zimbabwe's economy. I mean, the Zimbabwean diaspora has been contributing for years anyway, because Zimbabwe's returning, I mean, they bring their skills, they bring their experiences, they can build businesses, they can create opportunities, they can bring in new ideas, fresh ideas. So I get the argument. But here's the thing, that's not an explanation for why Zimbabwe hasn't changed. It's actually part of the change. And then there's the Chinese investment. And yes, absolutely, Chinese investment has played a role in our infrastructure, especially, and development across Zimbabwe and across Africa. But if Chinese investment is contributing to the development, that doesn't somehow make that development imagery. It is still development. It is still there. It still exists. The development is still there, right? And then, of course, there's the simplest explanation of all. It's propaganda. I mean, people like to use this word. And if you ask me, I think that some people just throw this word because they don't want to use their brain. They don't want to exercise critical thinking. Because if you develop a habit of just throwing the word propaganda, then you become so lazy to the point that you don't even make the effort to look at the evidence, let alone demand accountability. You can't demand accountability if you don't know the actual truth on the ground. To be fair, some of the things that people are mentioning may genuinely be contributing to the progress that we are seeing. And I'm not saying that things have suddenly become perfect or that Zimbabwe has suddenly become an economic miracle. But there's a difference between asking, what are the factors that are contributing towards this development, towards Zimbabwe's progress, and saying that, oh, Zimbabwe hasn't changed at all. There must be something else to explain what we are seeing. These are two different things. Because at some point, if you keep looking for evidence to explain what is happening in Zimbabwe, and your explanation is always, oh, there must be something else, some external force, something outside of Zimbabwe, then you want to really check yourself. You want to do some introspection because perhaps the problem isn't Zimbabwe itself. The problem is you and the mental picture, the picture of Zimbabwe that you're trying to hold on to. And I've also been thinking about why accepting change is so difficult. Why we as human beings struggle to embrace change. Because if you look at psychology, you find that human beings create mental shortcuts all the time. For example, you see something, you experience something, you hear something, and if that happens repeatedly, eventually that becomes our understanding of reality. And what you find is that stories, headlines are particularly powerful because often, unless you've been to that country, these headlines are our first introduction to a country. If someone has never heard of Zimbabwe and then the news breaks out on some channel, Zimbabwe, this, hyperinflation or is now using $1 trillion notes, whatever the headline is, that becomes the introduction of that person to Zimbabwe. And if the person keeps seeing the same stories getting told over and over again, poverty, food shortages, hyperinflation, you name it, if those are the same headlines you keep seeing about a country, then eventually those events stop being just individual events that happened once upon a time, and they become the identity of that country in your mind. And once a picture is firmly established, it is difficult to update it, especially when the change happening in a country is gradual. When it's not like Rome was built in a day sort of change, it becomes boring. And mind you, some of the changes that happen do not necessarily make news headlines. They don't. And when these things, if there's a small change that is happening there, which seems boring, and then there's another change that is happening there, another one is happening there, maybe a factory is being built there, a shop is being built there, a road is being constructed there, that is happening over there. And if you look at these projects individually, they seem boring. And as I said, they don't necessarily make news headlines. And so we don't see the process. We don't see them coming together. And then suddenly we see the finished product after. And we're like, hang on a minute. Where did this come from? We are shocked. We are gobsmacked, as Ramaphosa said in their video. And I think that this is why Zimbabwe is such an interesting example of how narratives work. Because if the reality in front of you conflicts the picture in your head, you have a choice. And I think that you have three choices. The first choice is you can update the picture in your mind. The second choice is you can investigate yourself, find out what is going on, or you can find an explanation that allows you to keep that picture, that old picture intact in your mind. Those are your choices. And yeah, this is what we are seeing play out in real time when it comes to Zimbabwe. And I'm not implying that people who are trying to explain Zimbabwe's progress are doing it deliberately. No, most people aren't. It is just how people process information. We tend to notice information that confirms the evidence that we already have, what we already believe, that picture we already have in our minds. And when we have believed something for so long, for many years, yeah, it is going to take more than a few videos, a few headlines, a few pictures to actually convince us or for us to actually update that information, to assimilate the new information. It is going to take more than that for people to update the information, the picture they have of that old Zimbabwe. It is going to take a new story. It is going to take a new narrative to form. And this is where Zimbabweans have a pivotal role, a crucial role to play. And honestly speaking, I don't even blame those people who still carry an outdated picture of Zimbabwe. I don't blame them at all because where were we? Where were Zimbabweans who was documenting the gradual change? Who was writing about the progress? Who was showcasing the infrastructure, the new businesses? Who was making the documentaries? Who was writing the blogs? Who was showing the gradual change that was happening year after year? Who was doing that? Because we were living these stories, Zimbabweans were living these stories. And this is why I keep going on about the narratives. Because narratives matter, stories matter. It is through the stories that we tell that narratives are formed. The narratives that people develop about us. And narratives shape perceptions. And perceptions influence attitudes. The attitudes that people develop about us, and attitudes influence decisions, the decisions that people make about us, and decisions can influence investment. They determine our positioning. So, as Zimbabweans, we need to know, we need to understand how things are connected. We need to see the link between these things. And I already know what people are thinking. Again, that propaganda word. When I say that we need to tell our stories or we need to amplify our voices, I'm not suggesting that we should start spreading propaganda. I'm saying that let us tell our stories, the good, the bad, the failures, the comebacks. Whatever it is, let us tell it. Let us showcase what is happening in Zimbabwe in a healthy way so that when something happens in Zimbabwe, people are not skeptical. People don't say, oh, they're trying to save face. These are lies. This is propaganda. It is because of that vacuum, that information gap. People become skeptical about the progress happening in Zimbabwe because they haven't seen the transition. And at the end of the day, it's about marketing. We now live in this era of information. Information is the currency nowadays. Information is the currency. I know I've yapped on long enough, but all I'm saying, all I'm saying is please let us just tell our stories. Let us tell our stories because we owe it to the future generation to capture our stories and to document. And I'm not talking about just making videos online, just writing a few headlines here and there. I'm not talking about creating a post on Facebook because these platforms can be taken down at any minute. I'm talking about capturing, documenting, preserving in meaningful ways, writing books, capturing our history because history right now is being made. This is Zimbabwe's history in the making. Imagine in 50 years or in 100 years, long after we are gone, people are telling Zimbabwe's story and they're saying and they're giving a version that is way off, that is not even the real version. The thought gives me sleepless nights. I'm a mom. I have children and I want my kids to be proud. I want my grandkids, my great grandkids to read our history and see exactly what happened and feel proud. I want that. I want them to read the good, the bad, the ugly, and the marvelous things that Zimbabwe has done, is doing, and will continue to do. This is why I'm making this video. So anyway, this is the video. As always, feel free to chip in the comment section. Remember to like the video. I'll see you in the next episode. Take care.